This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
And welcome to the program. I'm Roby Brock. We are glad to have you with us. I'm glad to have our first guest in studio with us. Amy Chozick is in Arkansas this week. She's the chosen one. She is a national political reporter with the New York Times. And welcome to Arkansas.
Thanks.
Welcome
I love Arkansas.
To our program. And we've got a little oppressive heat going on to remind you of your hometown of San Antonio.
That's right, just like San Antonio.
I know. I figured you'd like that. Let's talk about where we are. We're going to talk all things Hillary and Donald today, of course. I couldn't have you here and not talk about that. Let's talk about where we are in the campaign cycle. We're beyond the primaries. We are pivoting to the general election, and a lot of that messaging isn't defined yet. So to me, this is the fun time between now and, really Labor Day.
Right. So, I mean, who would have thought the Democratic nomination would go on longer than the Republicans? But you're right, it just ended in D.C. with Hillary Clinton winning the D.C. primary. Of course, Bernie Sanders just released a video last night vowing to continue to take his message to the Democratic Party, hope to influence the platform, to which a lot of Clinton supporters down here say, well, is he even a Democrat? But that being said, he hasn't dropped out. He said he's unified with Hillary Clinton to defeat Donald Trump. So it's sort of baby steps on the Democratic side. Bernie slowly coming around.
You think, though, I mean, eventually he comes around full circle. It always happens. It just sometimes takes a little bit longer.
That's true, but I was covering Obama in 2008 when Hillary wasn't going to drop out and everyone wondered how that would work. That being said, they were both Democrats. I think Bernie has proven a bit more of a wild card because he hasn't been a Democrat until he started running for president, so he has less loyalty to the party. A lot of his supporters are first time, haven't participated in the process before and are technically independent. So I think there's a little bit more of an open question about where things will settle. So
on the Republican side, it seems like it's almost manic depressive behavior. It's like one day, we're okay with Donald Trump, and the next day, oh my gosh, we've got to, no, I have to distance myself from those comments. I mean, I don't see party unity coming on the GOP side. I mean, there'll be some window dressing on that, but it just seems to me there's a fundamental underlying, it's going to be problematic because he's going to keep saying controversial statements and forcing Republicans to have to distance themselves from him. Is that your take?
Well, to your point about general election messaging, as you know, we all thought we would see a new Donald Trump, much more with a message much more targeted at a general election, which, as you know, is vastly different than a minority of a Republican primary.
Right.
And then he has not changed his message. He's sort of doubled down on the proposed ban on Muslims, some of his sort of insinuating that President Obama is sympathetic to Islamic terrorism. So he's doubled down on some of this language that very much appeals to the base, but that is not, according to polls, broadening his popularity, particularly among women, among groups of voters that he'll need in a general election. So I think that has caused a lot of skittishness with Republicans who are already very skittish about his prospects. And I think you're seeing, Paul Ryan and McConnell and others, we denounced that statement, but we're still sticking with our nominee. So we're going to kind of watch into the convention how long that will last, and also sort of, directly correlates to what is going to come out of Donald Trump's mouth next, and no one really knows.
Yeah, that's what makes this campaign so fun to cover. I mean, come on now.
So fun.
So there's kind of two strategies at work here. You've got Hillary Clinton, the data-driven, scientific, running a campaign, a national presidential campaign, very much like you would expect to see a major party candidate run. Donald Trump, a little more shoot from the hip.
Just a little.
Throwing out all kinds of references to I don't need it, I don't want it. Heck, I don't even know if I even need these Republicans who say they're distancing themselves from me. Is it hers to lose or his to win?
Well, this election has been so unpredictable, and the media in particular has been wrong about everything. So I say all that with a grain of salt. I mean, look, demographically, it would be hard for a traditional Republican to win, given the changing demographics of the country. So I think a Democrat, no matter who it is, had a built-in advantage already in a general election.
The Electoral College, the swing states.
Growing number of Latinos and young voters, and the so-called Obama coalition. And so I think any Republican walks into that with a challenge. But given Donald Trump's particular weakness among Latinos, women, African Americans, it's going to be a particular challenge for him. That said, I watched Hillary Clinton be the inevitable candidate in 2007. I was like, who's this Obama guy? And so, there are unforced errors. There are still investigations going on related to her personal email. And so you never know.
You have been to a lot of other states. I can tell you a lot about a Donald Trump supporter in Arkansas, but I want to hear your perception of a Donald Trump. Who is a kind of give me some stereotypical qualities of Donald Trump supporters in Ohio or Virginia or some of these states that will be pivotal.
What's interesting about what's motivating a lot of his supporters in that sort of Rust Belt area, which will be battleground states, is trade. And Donald Trump has sort of emerged as the populist to the left of Hillary Clinton on some of these economic issues that are really driving these white working class voters, especially Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, the Rust Belt states that will be critically important in a general election. You know, they believe that trade deals like NAFTA, which of course Bill Clinton signed into law during his administration, have been the cause of the vast move of manufacturing jobs away from their states. And of course, that's part of the equation, but not all of it. And Hillary Clinton has a much more, she's come out against President Obama's signature trade deal, TPP. She said she regrets NAFTA and thinks parts need to be reworked. But she is seen as, you know, more favorable to trade than Donald Trump, actually. And and I think she's shown, even in her primary against Bernie Sanders, like unwillingness to just blame everything back. I think that's not the way she thinks. I think she believes that there's good and bad, and we live in a global economy, and we have to kind of embrace that and compete against that landscape. Whereas the instinct with Trump and some of his supporters is hunker down. You know, China's taking away our jobs. We've got to, you know, America first is his term.
Right.
Make America great again.
Come on. So, but does that
Which, interestingly, we did a survey, and we asked Trump voters, well, what period do you want America to be? What does that mean? And they mostly said 2000.
Oh, really?
Bill Clinton.
You covered Hillary Clinton in 2007, 2008, as you mentioned earlier. What is different about covering her? How is she different as a candidate in 2016 versus 8 years ago?
I mean, she's very much the same person. And so I think that she has tried to sort of improve some of the problems that existed in her 2008 campaign. I mean, the biggest problem that existed, you know, she got in trouble for messaging, but it really wasn't so much a messaging problem. It was a lack of a delegate strategy. Remember, Obama picked up all the caucus states and just beat her. And I think her current campaign team very much has its calculator out and was thinking about delegates and thinking about running a modern campaign and how do I get to that magic number. That being said, I think Hillary Clinton has a tendency to overcorrect. She got criticized in 2008 for not talking enough about being a woman or playing up the historic nature of her candidacy. This time it's like first grandma, you know, it's all about woman, it's all about breaking the glass ceiling. And, you know, fair enough, that's excited some people, but especially young women have seen it as a little bit craven, they're a little bit turned off by how and so I think she's also surrounded herself with new people. You know, her campaign is some people she's had relationships with, but it's a lot of new advisors who maybe feel less comfortable with her and giving her advice. So there's positives and negatives. I think in terms of, you know, interacting with the press, I saw her losing in 2008, and she became a very different candidate. She would, you know, engage with the press. She even engaged with voters in sort of a different way when it looked like it was over.
Yeah, she let her hair down a little bit.
Completely.
Yeah. All right. So last question for you. I mean, Trump is taking a lot of shots at the national press. You're not with the Washington Post,
Right.
but we've
He
seen
did
that
call me
development
third
there.
rate on Twitter.
He called you third rate on Twitter.
Yeah.
What a badge of honor there.
Third rate reporter.
Does that make it personal? Do you think in the newsroom that's seeping in personally that, you know what, maybe not that we're out to get this guy, but I'm going to work harder to try harder? I mean, how's it changing the mentality in a newsroom?
Well, I think the dirty little secret about covering Donald Trump is that he can tweet negative things about reporters. He can call us slime at his press conferences. He is much more accessible than Hillary Clinton. You know, he is calling my colleagues and myself for almost every story we ask. You know, he is willing to get on the phone, he is willing to give comments, and so there's this interesting dynamic where I think bashing the media sort of plays well to his base, which he needs to expand but isn't.
Right.
But at the same time, he sort of can't help himself, and he's a kind of media creation, and he talks to reporters and is in some ways more accessible than Hillary Clinton. So it's an interesting dynamic. You know, I think he can call you out in public and then kind of be helpful or want to be involved in a story in a way that she, you know, doesn't do very many press conferences and is very skittish about engaging with the press.
Great to have you in studio with us, Amy Chozick.
So fun to be here.
Yeah, and you'll be back in Arkansas before the November 8th.
I hope so, maybe the JJ.
Yeah, all right. Well, come back when it's a little cooler.
All right.
I don't think JJ's going to be cooler for you then.
No.
So.